powerful episode of Mind Over Masculinity. I'm your host, Avik, and today's conversation is one that speaks right into the tension many of us are living with the right now, which is a very common word. It's uncertainty. Yeah. And uncertainty is not just about the economy, politics, or shifting the industries, but it's also about identity, relationships, mental health. Yeah. So, for men, especially, uncertainty can feel like a failure. And we are conditioned to project strength, direction, and certainty. But what happens when the ground beneath us feels shaky? Good to think about, right, dear listeners? So, when the answers aren't clear and we are called to lead, whether in the business, family, or personal life, without a roadmap. Yeah. So, dear listeners, to help us unpack this, I am really honored to welcome our today's guest, Dr. Andy. So, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you, Avik. What a great setup for our conversation today. I'm looking forward to diving into it with you.
Lovely. Thank you so much for joining us today. And before we delve deep into the discussion, I'll quickly love to introduce you to all the listeners. Uh, Dear listeners, Dr. Andy is a business owner, best-selling leadership author, award-winning speaker, and a man who knows both the professional and personal side of leading well. So he has coached Fortune 500 executives, written the golden principles, and spent decades teaching what it takes to not just manage, but truly lead. So I'll not take much of your time, dear listeners. Let's get into the discussion. And Dr. Andy, welcome to the show. And it's really a privilege to have you here with us.
Well, I appreciate that. You made me sound a lot better than I am. I think, you and I can laugh about it, but I think in the 2020s,
Uh-huh.
life and leadership both
Mm.
require us to be comfortable with uncertainty because
Mm.
of the very things you introduced as you started our session off together in terms
Yeah.
of life and personal relationships and professional and economic and political. We just live in a time of uncertainty. And
Mm.
for you and me to be the men that we'd like to be, part of what we've got to do is answer the question, how do I live in uncertainty
Yeah,
and prosper in uncertainty?
exactly. And so when talking about uncertainty, so facing uncertainty, like, I mean, you have spoken and written about the leadership in the times of pressure. So uh, let me start by asking, like, when everything feels uncertain, what does confident uncertainty
Uh,
look like in practice?
so, yeah, you and I have corresponded a little bit about that term, confident
Hmm.
uncertainty. And it really emerged for my team and me during the period when COVID first hit. My wife and I own a series of retail businesses here in Central Texas, where I reside, and these are storefront businesses. We unlock the door every day. We have customers come in, and my management team, we were required to lock the doors. And I still have leases and landlords that are requiring payments. I've got vendors and utilities. We've got customers that want to know if they're going to be charged a monthly membership when they can't access our services. And Avik, we didn't know what the answer was, and so we just started meeting as a leadership team every day at the beginning of the day on a quick Zoom call
I see.
to figure out what we needed to do that day. We didn't know what we were going to need to do the next day or the next week or the next month or the next quarter, but we could figure out that day. And we ended up calling it confident uncertainty. Hey, we're going to put our hands to the plow. And on this day, we're going to make these calls. We're going to put this in place. We're going to try this. We're going to reach out this way. We may have to change tomorrow, but today that's
Yeah.
what we're going to do. And that really kept us from being frozen in our uncertainty. It at least gave us something to try to create momentum and forward motion during a time of great uncertainty.
I totally agree. I mean, yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
It really happens. I mean, at the end of the day, we're thinking about what to do, how to take things ahead in the meeting, and we'll be coming up with this. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I think,
yeah.
part of the reality for your listeners is I
Mm,
think there's a false narrative
mm,
that men sometimes tell themselves that I need to be right. I need to know what I'm
mm,
doing. I need to be smart. I need to lead well. That's been the focus of my practice.
mm,
And many of us at times just feel like we're faking it. Well, I'm
yes.
telling you, fellow journeyers with me, doing something, even if you're not confident it's the right thing,
Mm,
doing something is better than doing nothing. And so
yeah.
moving in, but then giving yourself grace and permission to say, oh, that's not what we need to keep doing. Let's pivot tomorrow or let's pivot next week. And not beating yourself over being wrong, but
Mm,
leaning into what you believe is right. And that's that
yeah.
at mindfulness where it's I've got to forgive myself first and
Mm,
just lean forward.
exactly. And like for men who are listening who feel like they can't afford to show uncertainty, uh, how can they balance the honesty about not knowing with still being seen as kind of dependable?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's
Mm.
the $1,000,000 question. If you and I could write the book to answer that, Avik, we both could retire to a beach someplace. But here's what I do know. My area of passion and fascism
Mm,
and passion for many years has been the personal side of leading well. What mindset do men have that causes other people to want to follow them? And one of the defining characteristics of an effective leader, the way you and I are defining them on this podcast, is they have a degree of transparency. They're honest with their people, saying, I don't know. We'll figure it out together.
mm,
Let's give this a try. And if it doesn't work, let's try something else. That
mm,
whole ability to be, not necessarily overly vulnerable. We don't need any more crying CEOs on LinkedIn, but that
mm,
transparency of, I don't have my act together as much as you might think I have my act together. Let's
mm,
learn this together is part of what can begin to build a team that's loyal. And also, I think it
mm,
helps you and me, Avik, realize I don't really need to wear this mask that I think I need to wear that makes it look like I got my act together. People
yeah.
don't want us to have our act together. They want us to be genuine. It's
Mm,
just a scary thing for us to start doing that.
correct.
Yeah.
And that's really powerful because I think many men confuse confidence with having all the answers,
Right.
when in reality, the confidence might just be the kind of courage to keep moving forward, and even when the answers aren't clear. So I guess this is definitely powerful. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, and I think some of that is, the first person you need to lead well
Mm,
is yourself. So, you know, man, I challenge all of us to start our morning with what I call the leader's hour. Some
okay.
physical discipline, some mental discipline, some spiritual
Mm,
discipline, some organizing of our mind and thinking about the day and the week ahead and coming out of that meeting with ourselves so that we're ready to bring, you know, our best self, not our perfect self, but
mm,
our transparent, honest, well-intentioned self to the people that we're, trying to
mm,
demonstrate masculinity and lead and encourage. But it starts with us. You'll never be a better leader than you are a person. And so we've got to take care of ourselves first.
exactly. Very, very, very well said. Yes, definitely. So, and also, like in your work, um, you often connect leadership with the trust and authenticity. So,
Yeah.
how does uncertainty affect the mental health for both the leaders and people they lead?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ugh. you keep asking these $1,000,000 questions, Avik, and I got to write this book together. Uh, I mean, part of
Uh-huh.
growing into your leadership is
Mm,
making fewer mistakes than you made last quarter or last year, and learning, and as a result, being able to bring
mm,
insight and expertise and even wisdom to the table for the people around you.
yeah.
The problem with that is the only way you typically get smart that way
Mm,
is by making mistakes along the way. And so part of it is you've got to give yourself permission to make mistakes and then learn from mistakes. I was interviewed at our church here in Texas recently about long-term success, and one of the ministers kept saying, "Man, that's a wise insight. That's a boy, that's really." And I just laughed and I said, Ethan, what you're calling wisdom, I just call mistakes. I just made mistakes along the way, and I'm not making the same mistakes I was making 5 years ago and 10 years ago.
yeah.
So part of it for the men that you and I are talking to is I think we've got to give ourselves permission to not feel like we have to be perfect, to be willing to learn from our mistakes and move forward. That's why I love this phrase that you and I decided to focus our conversation on: confident uncertainty. I'm still not sure it's the right thing, but at the best moment in time right now, this is how I think I'm supposed to move forward. And if it changes in an hour, if it changes in a day, if it changes in a week, I'm not going to look back and berate myself. I'm going to look back and say, so what could I have learned so that I don't make
Mm,
that same mistake moving forward?
exactly. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Good stuff we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And so from here, what I think is like, if the leaders don't acknowledge stress or anxiety
Yeah,
during those uncertain times, uh, what ripple effect does it will create in the teams? I mean, I'm just
yeah,
thinking from that perspective, like how it will affect the team also.
yeah. I mean, that's another one of these really $1,000,000 questions. I think you've got to be honest. Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, from gosh, Avik, what
Mm,
that book is probably 25 years old at this point. You and I have probably quoted that book to other people. You know, he called it the hedgehog concept, where you
yeah.
just get up and you keep doing the same thing, right?
Mm,
And and you're not sure what tomorrow's going to bring, but you get up and you work hard, and you just get up and work hard. And this book, you and I remembered, it was a study of like top performing companies and how did they separate themselves from their competition. And one of the things was this they got up and tried to figure it out the next day. The other characteristic that
mm,
Jim Collins observed really
mm,
points to the question you just asked me. He said not only did they have this resolve to get up and keep pushing the ball forward the next day, get up and keep pushing,
yeah.
but they also had this self-effacing humility. These men that were making a difference in leading their teams well, they said "I" very little, and they said "we" a lot. Our team did it. We didn't know what we were doing, but we kept pushing forward. Man, I've got a great group that's dedicated in.
Mm,
This is the group that made it happen. They had this humility that was not false humility like you and I see celebrity influencers trying to
mhm,
pose. They genuinely believed that their team was going to be able to bring the best to the table because they freed their team members to make mistakes, to learn from their mistakes, to get up and try again tomorrow. This this steely resolve combined with humility. And I think if 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 our minds are going to tell our brains a new message
yeah.
about masculinity, it is not that I have to have all the right answers or look like the biggest, fastest, strongest person in the room.
Yeah.
My job is to bring the best out in people around me.
Mm.
That's that's what I think part of the mindset shift that you and I are trying to challenge your listeners with today.
Exactly. I totally agree on this. And I would say it is a reminder that leadership is not just about being bulletproof, but also showing humanity in a way that
Yeah.
uh, actually strengthens the team. So, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
like,
Exactly.
like we say, like the power or the support from the top hierarchy. So, uh,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
Well, and you and I just even think from both the Eastern tradition and the Western tradition,
Mm,
think about Mahatma Gandhi, we
yeah.
think about Jesus Christ. These were not people that pushed themselves forward,
Mm,
and yet both of them, in their way, ended up changing the world around them
exactly.
because the power of their character and humility and service for others is what won them tremendous influence.
Mm. Exactly. That is also true. And even one more I mean the he was also very famous, and he was a part of our independence as well. So Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he was also who actually crafted uh, the INA, which is Indian Army. So uh,
Wow. Wow. Interesting.
yeah, and that time, like because I'm talking about it is like 1941 or 42. This is the time. So when so he was a very good influencer and very learned person. He was the first person to crack the civil services exam. I mean, he was the first person to crack that. and
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's
and
interesting, Avik. I was
yeah.
I was just in West Africa last week. First
Mm-hmm.
time I've ever been to West Africa,
Yeah.
and there's a man I had never heard of, William
Mm.
Wade Harris, who in the
Mhm.
1800s
Yeah.
converted 100,000 people to a way of
Mm.
life because of his passion and conviction and humility, and so there are these types of men who have,
Mm.
you know, in some respects, they've conquered in their own mind the
Yeah.
masculinity equation, and they've realized true masculinity is not being the strongest person in the room with always the right answer. True masculinity is bringing the
Yeah.
best out in the environment and the people and the context around them.
Exactly. And how that person is also believing in himself, and
Yeah,
how he able to make things happen.
yeah,
Like the one which I was mentioning about Subhash Chandra Bose, he just given a slogan which is very famous, like "Give me blood, I'll give you freedom." So he just said like this,
yep, yeah,
and and hundreds of thousands of people who were not soldiers also, because that time there was no army was there, it was only
yeah,
so that leadership, I mean, it's
yeah.
really great.
I mean, that's what we're talking about is that
Mm.
masculinity looks different than I think much of our social media context in the 2020s would have us believe. You know, Avik, one of the discouraging trends that I see here in the States. I'm a big
Mm.
fitness nut. I do a lot of
Mm.
CrossFit exercising.
Okay.
But when I go to a normal gym, one of the big membership gyms where they have a big open environment and lots of equipment and things, they have mirrors all over the walls. And now in the 2020s, people are bringing their
Mm.
iPhones or their Android devices in and filming themselves exercising because they're
Yeah.
trying to become a fitness influencer.
Mm.
You know, one of the realities about, you know, men that are trying to be putting their mind over masculinity
Yeah.
is you just don't look in the mirror very often. You need to look in the mirror a little bit every day. That's my leaders hour that I talked about.
Mm.
But mirrors are only for glancing. Make sure
Yes.
your hair is combed and your teeth are brushed and your collar's on straight and you've got your to-do list for the day, and then get out and start
Right.
looking at other people and how you can help them.
Mm.
That's that's the kind of mind over masculinity that I'm afraid is lost at times in the 2020 in this celebrity influencer world that
Exactly.
unfortunately is a global phenomenon at this point.
I agree. Totally agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And like, if you could also give our listeners just one practical principle for leading themselves during those uncertainty, so what that would be?
I think it would probably be something you already asked me about, and we've already talked about it, and that is,
Mhm.
lead yourself first. Find out what type of rhythm do you need to have first
Mm,
thing in the morning, 3 to 5 days a week that helps you um, find that rhythm that allows you to bring real, you know, real masculinity to the table, because you've already answered the question about, do I have to make myself look good? No, you don't, because you spent time in the morning thinking about how you wanted to present yourself that day.
mm,
As a follower of Christ, I spend time reading the Bible and in prayer. I get a workout in. We're
mm,
big pet rescuers. We have animals in our home, and spending time with them. They love unconditionally. Those are just all these kind of deposits into my head and my heart, so that when I enter the day, I'm ready to have other people who need deposits from me.
mm. I agree. Totally agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
And I would say that's a gem, Andy, because at the end of the day, leading others starts with leading ourselves as well. So,
yeah,
which is definitely first
yeah, yeah,
of course.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah,
where yeah, so that's amazing, Andy. I mean, this such a such an empowering conversation today. I know time is constrained, but still, I mean, I really love the conversation, what
yeah.
your
Me too.
perspective,
Great
and
questions. Yeah,
yeah, and also I would love to highlight this part as well, that uh, because yes, you are true that somehow real masculinity is somehow it's not getting portrayed what we see over social media and other
that's right.
uh,
That's right.
places. So that's definitely true.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And there's a lot of good resources out there, right? There's some wonderful social media thought leaders that can help us with the very question that you're trying to help with. I'm in some respects, you and I are doing that right now. We're hoping
yeah,
that people will listen to this podcast and benefit from our discussion together. So the resources are out there. The problem is, I think the overwhelming lie is that you've got to be perfect. You got to have your act together. You got to be the man's man. When the best men,
mm,
well, they take us back to your very first question for me, and the whole topic of this
yeah,
podcast is they have confidence, but they also recognize we live in times of uncertainty. I don't
mm,
always have to be right.
exactly,
Yeah. Yeah.
exactly true. Yeah. So, amazing. So, and what I am also taking away in this is uncertainty is not something to fear, but it's something to stand with confidently. So, true leadership,
Yeah.
whether in the business, family, or in our minds, it's not about eliminating uncertainty, but also choosing to move forward. So, which is very
Yeah.
the bold and the great step.
Yeah. And you know, you and I remember Harvard Business Review published an article more than 20 years ago they
Mhm.
called VUCA, and this was, I think, in the early 2000s, and the authors of this article were saying we live in a VUCA world, and in English, VUCA stood for volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. A VUCA world, and if that was true more than 20 years ago, it's even more true right now. So this ability to bring your masculinity in the way you and I've been talking about for the last 30 minutes now,
Mm,
in confident uncertainty. We live in an uncertain time. That's this VUCA article. And so I think you and I have got to challenge your listeners to recognize that's not going away. And what
mm,
your masculine spirit needs to say is, I can still help people grow. I can still be a positive influence. I can still think about myself well and the people
mm.
around me well, because I just need to recognize nobody has all the right answers in the 2020s. Things are changing too much for any of us to to always be right. And so masculinity is about being humble. It's not about being right.
Exactly. Hmm. So, all the men who is listening, remember this, that your strength is not in pretending that you know it all, but in showing up with integrity, resilience, and openness, even when you don't. So, uh,
Yeah.
Andy, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your wisdom. And for all the listeners, if today's conversation resonated, please share this episode with someone who needs to hear it, or the loved ones whom you love the most and want to gift this episode as
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
one listen. So please do that. And also, I'd love to listen your perspective. Please share your perspective, questions, your views. It will definitely help us uh, grow more in terms of like what we are discussing about the actual masculinity. So it definitely help us reach to the people who actually need to listen to this. So uh, and and you can definitely reach out to Andy. So Andy, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the great medium?
Yeah. There's a link on the top of my website, Avik. We can grab a 15-minute Zoom call. It's Neillie Leadership, Neillie, Neillieleadership.com. Yeah, and I would be glad to continue these conversations with any of your tribe, Avik. This has been
Amazing.
an energizing conversation for me for the last 30 minutes.
Amazing. That's really great to hear from you, Andy. And dear listeners, I'll put all the links, all the details, everything into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this hope, until next time, this is your host, Abik, reminding you that real masculinity is not about the certainty, but it's also about the courage to walk confidently through the unknown. So,
Yeah.
till then, be happy and thank you so much.